Hello, welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And, you know, I guess we're just kind of continuing the conversation of channel yourself. And then we're just moving back into a good old classic, kind of like shamanism and spiritual and magical self defense, why you get attacked. So, I met a new friend. She's very spiritually gifted, but unfortunately, she is kind of in a shaman uh, situation where she feels like a piece of herself is being held captive by somebody else, and they were romantically involved. And I was like, let's it's not really about this situation, but it's like, you know what, let's go over this again. I've deleted some videos on shamanism, and to sum those videos up is we all have a natural ability to connect with the earth, with all life, the web of life. This ability is used a lot in shamanism, but doesn't have to be exclusively held to shamans. Witches are also, and wizards use the web of life as well, um, connecting to all things. So it's kind of a multi dimensional, experiential ability that you develop, and you can use it any way you want. But let's go over some pitfalls on how you could become victimized by a psychic, a witch, a guru, a very magnetic, charming person. Um, it all, when I like to just kind of do a little analysis to how did we get ourselves in these situations. And also, a little bit earlier, a couple months earlier, I became friends with this other lady who's in a new age store working with crystals and stuff. And she is being also psychically attacked, having some type of abuse going on. With some of these people are random strangers, some of them have been previous healers that have worked on her. Um, and I just go through the basic. So I consider them clients, whether they're friends, family members. People have always come to me for shamanic, psychic protection, to help break spells, um, maybe even every once in a while intermediate between a magical altercation between two parties. This is something that I actually find very interesting, and they're never resolved if one of the persons can't like give up the ego. They can't give up the want, the need to be victorious, to prove the other person right or wrong, to maybe win them back into a relationship. Um, we also don't see a victory when someone isn't able to change their beliefs, their attitude, and their perception about what's going on. So, the first thing I basically asked, going through a simple questionnaire, like, and it's usually not the first item on the list in my mind, but it's usually revealed later on. Oh, there's drinking involved. There's plant medicine involved. There's uh, maybe even pharmaceutical involved. When we look at the tarot card of the moon, we don't really know or understand, because like the download that came to me today with that card was plant medicine, um, drugs, opening up the portal from the lower consciousness, the abyss, the deeper recesses of the collective subconscious and unconscious material, and just your own personal unconscious material. The unconscious is kind of ruled by the moon, and it rules our astral body. So we start getting into the science or the physics of mysticism and magic. This is where things really get separated between like a witch and a wizard and an occultist. So like shamans and witches are kind of two sides of the same coin. They're, and the reason why is because a lot of the power comes from accessing the body or using the body as the portal to open up to the subconscious realm and the lower astral plane, which is very tied to plants and the cycles of the moon. And our astral body and certain essences of plants gain their power from the night, from the moon, from the stars. And so it's very lunar in nature. And that, in a weird way, when you start opening up the subconscious, you're opening yourself up to powers and a realm that's of the non-physical nature. So it's usually like the training ground from starting to move into other dimensions, like higher astral realms and other worlds. And so it's like what so that's why I associate it through experience and through download that the tarot card that goes with it is the moon and almost the high priestess card. So we see the legends of the priestess of Delphi maybe taking some type of psychedelic fumes in to go into trance and altered states, the path of the serpent, to gain access to realms. And so it seems like everyone seems like there's a lot of Westerners that are fed up with religion and with so many things, and they're going into plant medicine and shamanism as a portal. In their minds, they think shamanism isn't witchcraft. They're thinking shamanism isn't the occult. But then once you really get into it, it is. But it's the path of passion. It's the path of desire. It's so when we're looking at the tree of life, it's on the path of mercy. And Netzach, ruled by Venus, that has a lot to do with plant medicine and emotions. Emotions set things into motion. So, and so I would say it's definitely feminine ruled. It has to do with the earth, it has to do with the moon, it has to do with opening up that huge reservoir. Where's your training manual? You know? And so shamanism is a form of psychology. So you might want to take some psychology to understand what you're going to be working with. You're going to be working with archetypes, from the 4 elements to animals, to gods and goddesses, to angels, to ascended masters or spirits and beings that live on the other side. When we add the psychology of good and evil and right and wrong, now we're getting into some trouble. But the subconscious is just like diving into the ocean. There's sharks, there's whales, there's octopus, there's squid, there's depths that are still unexplored. Same within our minds. And so the reality is it's a dangerous place, not just because opening the doors is so dangerous and not knowing what will come through, but how deep will you go? Do you really have a roadmap? And so, on this journey, thanks to Michael Horner, an anthropologist from UCLA, way back in the day, hippies and free spirit and one love and all that, great. But they went out and were working with indigenous people. And Michael Horner is famous for basically resurrecting the word and defining the word shaman using cultural motifs or symbols, archetypes, patterns, uh, and 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 their cosmology, the way they organized and saw reality with certain plants, medicines for healing to help navigate and create psychological effects to bring community, to create healing, to create sacredness and ceremony, to orchestrate rituals. And so we saw the shaman kind of acting as a priest, acting as a psychologist, acting as a doctor. So it's almost like a jack of all trades. The shaman had the ability to work at many different levels within the community to keep the peace, to create order, to, help them survive a war, to be a prophet and a seer and a revelator, to guide them into the future, to help them understand strange new things that were happening. And so that is a huge role. And a lot of us think, oh, I'm going to be a shaman and I'm going to, talk to some plants and we're going to resolve and we're going to play psychic or we're going to play witch doctor. But the reality of it is, I would say true shamanism is a dead art because people aren't, where's our modern community? Who is a person that gathers and creates tribe and uses a modern motif of archetypal symbols that are present in our minds to convey prophecy, to help understand our environment, to create healing. Instead, we've kind of hijacked or moved into other cultures to try to gain something that we've lost, our connection to the earth, our connection to spirit, our connection even to ourselves. And so it seems that a lot of people, so like modern psychology had its limits. And so they went to shamanism. Religion had its limits. It went to shamanism. Healing has its limits, and so we went to shamanism. And shamanism seems to be us clutching at our ancient ancestors. It speaks to all of us. And because it's actually very natural for you as an individual to navigate your own environment and when you're encountering the unknown, you're having a mystical experience. When you describe it in your terminology, that is the mystical language coming out of your mouth. And so, in a weird way, it can't truly be understood unless someone is you, unless you are that culture, unless you are that tribe. So, under the banner of shamanism and trying to preserve tropical and native plants to endangered species, you could say it's trying to preserve a heritage, a culture, and so then we can get very political, but the reality of it is when we're dealing with occult abilities, shamanism, psychic powers, witchcraft, the domination of magical forces to subjugate somebody else into a battle or a loss of life. The tools that you have are limited, and there are only basic tools left to us. But the reality is, you need to have a lot of experience going into the magical world and dealing with magical things. It's another landscape. You have to grow your fins and learn how to breathe underwater if you're going to be opening those doors. And so, when you think about it, your lifespan is probably, I believe, I'm going to say all the way up to 125, even though they're trying to say less, like 80 years. But let's say your experience into the magical world, however, whatever you use to open that door, you have 40 years of experience, maybe. Does your teacher truly have 40 years of experience or more? Does your navigator, does the one who's guiding you through the jungles of the subconscious and superconsciousness, do they truly have enough personal experience in those waters to be a leader to you? And then how can you follow a guide who's so advanced? Did your guide just leave you on some magical island and now you're lost for the rest of your life? So you may have experienced with drugs like LSD or something. I don't know. I'm just going to use that one as reference. You may have opened up a room, but you don't know how to get out, or a piece of you is still there. You never come back. You're permanently altered. So, in a weird way, there's a lot of training that can be done here before you go there, and continual training. Expect to double and triple your efforts when those magical doors open, because besides trying to keep it together here in this dimension, you have to quickly learn and gain enough experience in that dimension. And so your lack of experience is the one thing, your lack of knowledge, which in a weird way is the lack of personal experience, is why you're being magically attacked, why you need assistance from others, why you're in over your head and you're now in danger. And so all these people don't have enough experience. Yet humans all have pride, and we're all foolish. So we get too entangled in things too quickly. So desperation, wanting a relationship. I call it social intercourse, getting too familiar with people too quickly, or having them get too familiar with you. So lack of those personal boundaries, really getting to know yourself and really strengthening your connection with what you call source, energy, consciousness, whatever that is going to help you. All three people that I'm referring to outsource their connection to a deity, usually like Jesus or an angel or their guides. I can't, in a weird way, it's spiritual bypassing, because it's not truly your actual link to the source. You're linking yourself to a mommy and daddy figure. Like Jesus would maybe be a daddy figure. For me, Kali, the dark goddess, is like a mommy figure to me. And even though they're allies and great sources of power, you're not exactly developing you. You're not growing as a shaman or a witch or whatever you label yourself as. You need to work on getting a stronger connection with the source of sources, that which is all, because you need to start gaining strength. You need to gain power. So let's move on. Let's see. Dressing needs. Mundane. We talked about drugs. Shamans and dragios. Let's see. We'll just go back to boundaries. Because when we don't really know, we haven't taken enough time to understand. We're basically fully programmed at around 8 years old. And it's pretty much our beliefs and our lack of personal needs that weren't met from our caregivers cause us to create a personality that on some level helps us out and on another level hinders us. And so if you haven't, so psychology is recommended, and this isn't new. Like Israel Regardie, who I think was like a scribe at one point for the Golden Dawn, and then he became some ranking official, but basically he's a pretty big figure in the Golden Dawn. And he did actually magical psychology, and he did magical healing using the tree of life, meditations, and words to help people get over psychosis, to get over psychoelectrical things going on in their body, with great success. So he wasn't just experimenting and getting no success. He was getting a lot of success through the art of meditation and powerful word chanting and stuff like that. And he basically said in one of his little books I read, like there was like a little index, an appendix, and in that appendix he wrote this little article, and it was basically, if you're going to be doing the occult, you need to have like a good 5 years of psychoanalysis of yourself under your belt before you fully engage, knowing of the stuff that comes up, the glamour. And so I'm gonna end that part there, because now I gotta, in all these cases, these last 3 cases of ongoing psychic battles, these women fighting men in the astral plane, ex-boyfriends and whatever, strangers, foul, creepy men. One thing they all say is, oh, this person is so powerful. This person is so dangerous. This person is so skilled. And I'm like, am I the one who's going to help you? So, will this ever get resolved if you go to someone who you don't believe is more powerful than your opponent? No. You're basically, by the power of your own word, saying you've like overvalued the enemy, It's like, and then the person you go to as help you, you've undervalued. That means you're betting on the wrong team. They're looking at you and saying, I'm not putting my money on you to save me, but I'm asking for your help. Do you see the backwards thinking on this? Why would you go get a psychic reading from someone else if you believed your intuition was better? See how you have you're betting on yourself versus them. You're betting on the enemy. So, rule number 1, if you're going to go get magical assistance, the person you go to, you need to perceive in your own mind is more powerful than you, more powerful than the condition that you're wanting to be remedied. That could be an enemy, that could be an illness, that could be some type of block you have. Bet on your healer, bet on the practitioner for getting success. So, wow. So, in my personal evolution with dealing with other people, I now realize part of the outcome is dependent on the client, on the patient. And so there is that real psychological value. And so I think, moving on, because I was going to take it down a different road. The inner child is where the fear is. The inner child, and I would also say the body as just a primal animal, like a pet. If you look at pets, they get scared and then they get angry and vicious and attack. But they're also afraid of the dark. They're also afraid of noises they don't understand and things that they see. They're also misperceiving a lot. So I would say our animal body, our emotional body, and that inner child that's vulnerable, we tend to see things as larger than they are. The more in your subconscious you are, the more things seem intensified. We have more energy on them. And so examining the nature of fear is a really good thing to do for yourself and others. So in a weird way, being in the practice of psychic healing and magical healing and self-defense, which is always going on, understanding your inner child. Who's your daddy? Who's your mommy? Who's your god? Who's your goddess? Who's your psychologist? Who has the power over you? How do you give that power away? These are psychological energy dynamics that will play into the success of the magical operation or psychic operation. So, this is such a big subject. And I think that most people that have difficulties with this are very polarized as trying to be a good person, as trying to be a saint. They really believe in Jesus or they believe in the church and they're gone on to these magical realms. And because you're so polarized and your power is being outsourced to Jesus or religion, a spiritual belief in being good, you're not in your power. And I really believe that's one of the biggest reasons why you've gotten that situation. And it gets confusing on your own boundaries. It seems like everyone who believes in love and light doesn't understand that applies to you. You have to have self-respect for yourself. You have to maintain those boundaries. You have to use discernment. You have to say no, putting yourself in danger in the first place. You have to say no for letting someone talk down to you and slowly dominate you through the power of their own suggestion, their energy, and their words, and whatever they say. So let's equal that playing field. And so I really kind of stepped away from that magical stuff for a while and grew in power. So the number one way to strengthen yourself is step away from it all and just work on your connection with the source. That puts you back together. Do anything you can, some self-reflection, some journaling, some psychology, some counseling, some life coaching. Work in the physical world. Just be a human being. That will empower you and get you back to yourself, clarifying your values and what you want out of your life. Really have a life purpose that's not exactly spiritually oriented, that will crystallize you as just the human being. Why are you here in this incarnation? You know, be of actual service to yourself so you can be of service to others in a very practical, result oriented way. This will cut out 90% of your problems. The video is going to cut out, so we'll talk about this more of this subject later, but I think I really put it all out there. Get back to yourself, your own personal connection with source, lay off the drugs, lay off the religious addiction, quit outsourcing to a different god or goddess, aka spiritual bypassing. Yeah, just sharing my thoughts and ideas on all this. And lastly, have a mentor and a teacher for your own spiritual development. Under the energy of their umbrella, it protects you. So stop associating with weak people, manipulative people. I mean, you don't need that in your life. You got to value yourself. You got to love yourself. And once you start really caring about you, all that bullshit just goes, because you don't have time for it. It's not. So my life goal is to discover more about me. So automatically, when push comes to shove, I don't need to be swimming in dirty water. I'm not going to get what I need there. So there's no reason to have an energetic connection, and it's not going to be strong. So that eliminates so much crap. I would say all these people have a tendency to be water signs, and water signs have a tendency to want relationships. And so when you're going about your desire for relationships in unhealthy ways, it's very possible you're more prone to have magical and psychic attack. So I'd say, once again, get really clear with your boundaries. Take responsibility. It's your fault that it's continuing, because you're somehow not letting go. And you're not clearing out. Okay, this video is gonna cut out on us, so let's just call it good. Have a good day.